So we're continuing our Chazorah, voice tests of the Maamar page Nun test. He's explaining here in the Maamar that the ability that Yidden have, Dafke, that Yidden have, Neshamas Yisrael, to reveal down here, Menucha Shlema She'ata Reitzeh Ba, and explain that this fifth level, which as it turns out corresponds to the fifth level of the Neshama Yechida, but in Yechida itself, the Atzmius of Yechida, the very essence level of the Yechida. So this level of Menucha Shlema She'ata Reitzeh Ba, which explained, is the fusion. It's Shin and the word Ata. So the Shin, which has three strokes, so that's the Gimel Kavin, as Chesed Gvura Tiferes, as they are an absolute iskalulus and oneness in the pshitas of Ein Sof. And Ata is already the Gilui of Ein Sof. So this is right here, the Gilui of Chesed. The two fused together in one word, She'ata, means the unity of these two levels, meaning the utterly transcendent, utterly, where the Gimel Kavin are indistinguishable. That's the Shin. All three strokes come to one foundation. Ata, this is all different. Ata is Chesed, already lifnei tzimtzum, but an articulation on a potential level at least, but an articulation of Chesed, and it's all in one word. That's because how are you able to, and where do they reveal this? Here on earth, here. So how are you able to do that? Because neshamas are rooted in a level higher than both. And therefore, your children will recognize and know that from you is the menucha, this essential menucha, and from you, meaning from verily from Atzmos. So it's from there that this unity can be achieved. And that's what he's explaining now in this test. And explained this atmistic level of the neshama, Yechida. Namely, that there are in general two levels of the neshama. There's Pnimi and Makif. Pnimi are the conscious levels of the neshama, Chesed, Seichel and Midas, and so on, Chachma and Minadas and the Midas. And then there's the transcendent levels, Chai and Yechida. Now, Chai and Yechida are described as Makif a close Makif and a distant Makif, analogous to garments and a house. Now, generally we say, in drawing a distinction between the two, that a garment, although it transcends, nonetheless it's tailored to the body. A house isn't built on the height of the occupants, and all people can enter a house equally. So a house, a bayis is a makif harochik, which means a more transcendent and a more essential, all-encompassing revelation in the face of which all finite levels are equal. Again, all the inhabitants of the house, or anybody can come into a home, and it's not tailored like clothing. Nonetheless, he says, even the bayis is not the true etzem. Because even a house has its limits. You don't want it too grand; it becomes not just a palace, but what's the word for it? Some grand building that is impersonal. You don't want your bedroom, your living room to be that vast. It still has to be tailored to the human occupants and the way they live there, and still reflective. The house is still, even though it's a makiv, it's still reflective in a distant way, not directly like clothing. They're literally tailored to the person, but still reflective in some way to the functions and limitations of the person, which the house is meant to then contain. So it's still not the atzmizdike level of the neshama. The atzmizdike level of the neshama, that's he describes as, or refers to as atzmasei yechida, and it's from there, that's the essence where the neshama is rooted. That's the olah b'machshava, and therefore, the essence of the neshama being beyond even the highest transcendent level, in simple words, an atzmizdike level. Therefore, Yidden are able to fuse opposites. It's only when drawing on essence that opposites can be fused, because the opposites come from the essence, and therefore, when the essence is brought to bear, then contrasting manifestations become harmonious. But otherwise, they are incompatible to whatever degree. There's makif and there's pnimi, and one affects the other in this way and the other way, but each one has its place. So this is the point that Yidden draw down here in this world. The menucha shleima sher ata reitzaba, explain the sher ata, that's because olah b'machshava. This was the general gist of h'tשכ, right? And it's at this level he concluded, this is the critical part in the Avodah. This atzmizdike level, that's where all Yidden are one and the same. And that's where Mesiras Nefesh comes from, true Mesiras Nefesh. Not a Mesiras Nefesh for an agenda-laden Mesiras Nefesh, for some conscious gain, but simply because this is Hashem's desire. And that's why the Tefillah concludes, Menucha Shlem Shat Zaracho v'yakiru v'nechel v'yedo, ki meitchem hi menuchasam, v'yal menuchasam yakdisho shmecha, and for you they sanctify your name. Mesiras Nefesh, Kiddush Hashem, which you learned in previous Maimarim. What Kiddush means and Hashem means, at any rate, the point being that even simple Yidden, have sacrificed themselves utterly for Hashem. Why? Because this comes from the etzem and the neshama, the etzem hayichida, atzmis hayichida. We learned in the previous Maimarim, the Shmiat said, the Simchas Torah Maimed, the Kiddush Hashem means Kiddush, Kodesh, holy, the ultimate holiness removed is God himself, and Shem is a name as Hashem, as a God relates to creation. So Kiddush Hashem is drawing the essence of Hashem into creation. So now Raptor Chazorah is Yud. We'll conclude Chazorah now, and then share with you the Ha'orah, the Sikha. There's a Sikha in the Chelik Tes Vov, which is based on the very end of this Maimer, elaboration of the end of the Maimer. So why do we say this at Mincha? Why do we say this Dafka Shabbos? Because Shabbos, he introduces now what Shabbos is. So Shabbos is a level, is unique, and that it's shaykh to every Jew, and Shabbos reveals this atzmizdike yechida level of every Jew. Why is it unique to Shabbos? And that's why since Yaakov Dafke, we find the association of Shabbos to Yaakov, that's why he gets the Nachla B'li Mitzar in the true limitless inheritance. So why is Shabbos Dafke uniquely expressive of the Yechida level? Because all the other mitzvahs, they all relate to the various conscious faculties of the person. Like Tefillin, which addresses the heart and the head. So obviously, that's disparate. You can't compare the heart and head of great tzaddikim to simple folk. And likewise, all the other mitzvahs, which are all about some kind of performance. So they address, Tayyag mitzvahs address the various spiritual limbs and parts of the neshama, and likewise the body. Whereas Shabbos is about not doing. It's about menucha. Now, even though there too, surely there's distinction. Like we see and we learned previously in the previous Maimarim, that there's different levels of menucha on Shabbos itself. There's the menucha Friday night, it's eichel metech pselis, and then Shabbos day, eichel metech eichel. The different kinds of bir, and then there's mincha, which is higher still. So surely, on a very simple level, the tzaddik's rest is very different than the simple person who's simply resting from his toil and work and travail of making a living. It's simply from physical labor even. But that, he says, is only what they're resting from, but the actual etzem menucha is equal to everyone. Now here, he adds in the ha'ara in the sikha, which elaborates this last part of the Maamar. And the question was raised, Adam had asked the question, surely every leisa says also not doing, every leisa is the great equalizer, that everybody, that in not doing, in cessation of work, so why is Shabbos unique? So the point of the ha'ara is, Rabbi answers the question and says, because, Rabbi, that beautifully expressed, you can find it. No, yeah. Every leisa. So not a question, because, for example, every leisa said not to do has a content. You're not doing something specific. For example, you shall have no other, not serve idols. So in not serving idols it's an intellectual deep awareness of what idolatry means, and not to serve idols, an affirmation of the one that's of Hashem. So this is an expression of emunah and das. And so therefore, it has to be there's an inherent understanding in observing don't serve idols. And likewise, every prohibition. Don't do a specific thing. There needs to be an appreciation of what that thing is, and we don't do it. Or don't do it now, don't do it here. Not some leisa says obviously only apply to certain times. Whereas Shabbos, the menucha shlema is no manner of any work. It's not a specific kind of activity don't do. It's nothing. No activity. That's what's unique about it. It's teichen. All the other loisas has a specific message, a negation. You are to negate something. You have to be aware of it and dismiss it. Don't do it. Resist it. Here it's not. You don't have to know any. Here you have to know what the malachas are. There is still, at the end of the day, there's some idea. But overall, the general idea is leisase kol malacha. It's not related to a specific pursuit or activity or awareness. And therefore, that's why Dafka Shabbos is the great equalizer and touches the essence and expressive of complete surrender and bittul. So he goes on to say, likewise Shabbos, the emes is that the time of the delight, the menucha of Shabbos. So on a simple level, what's the delight of Shabbos? So for the simple person, it's the good meal. It's going to eat Friday night. The fat food and the spiced wine, tavshel shomein yain bevusam. But the emes is not that. That's just the expression of it. The emes of the tainug is it's the tainug of the atzmi yechida, which every Jew possesses equally. Now, then he concludes. Was that clear? Is this point clear? Yeah. And that's also the reason why at Shalosh Shudas, the Minik Chabad, and even halachically, the meal of Shalosh Shudas is not as hard and fast as the meal of the first two Sudas. Even halachic can be yotze with fruit and so on. In Chabad, the custom is not to eat it all, and that's hinted to in Hayoim Lois. He says in not going to that now. In Hayoim Yom, he brings it. There's an allusion to not eating food at all at the third meal. The point is because this is mamish, a tainik of the etzem nefesh, and not expressed in any pursuit or activity. In simple language, is the true pleasure of being a Jew. He says, I am a Yid. Not the express, therefore, and not expressed in I'm enjoying something about being Jewish. Whether it's intellectual, emotional, or spiced wine. Here it's the essential atzmis de ketainug I am a Yid. Similar to Yom Kippur, Taka, and Ne'ilah, and there's strong analogies there. Yom Kippur is also the expression of Yechidah, of course, especially in Ne'ilah, and that's reflected every Shabbos at Mincha. So this is the third level, Manucha Shleima Shata Reiseba, not the third level, it's the fifth level. The Atzmizdika level that every Yid possesses, and that's where Trumasidis Nefesh comes from. Now, and this is also the connection to what? To the union of Daled Amos. So let's just clarify this. Actually, we should maybe look at it again. Okay, we'll say it by heart. Namely, the Torah, that's actually machlekes where this is the Reis Rabban on the union of Tchum. At any rate, the pasuk tells us in the whole story of Parshat B'Shalach when the manna didn't fall on Shabbos and a double portion fell on Erev Shabbos. So the pasuk says, "Ish tachtov al yetze ish mim koimai," that each person should remain in his place and not go out of his place. So here we learn, because of the measure of the camps, it's of the camps in the desert, what Tchum Shabbos is, namely that a person has 2,000, a person can walk 2,000 amas outside a contained area on Shabbos, but not further. And our sages added, and it's hinted to, a person should dwell, ish tacht of a man, how to translate, ish tacht of a man under himself. But here is an illusion that the Chachamim gave an additional daled amas. Once you go outside the 4 cubits, the 2,000 amas, you have daled amas. How's it hinted? Ish tachtov, there's the 4 amas for the 3 amas for the person himself. The average person is 3 amas high, and then a 4th for the spreading of the hands and the feet. So a person has 4 amas. Now this is not only in the laws of Tchumim, but it's also, as we said, in general. That even in the, not in the Mamash and Shusarabim, but any place that's in a Carmelis or a Simta, a place that's off, it's public, but not Mamash, but Shusarabim. So there, the Chachamim granted each person daled amas, that if a lost article that is hefker, is that the person's daled amas, he acquires it even without having to pick it up. The Chachamim instituted this in order to avoid strife. People shouldn't literally pounce on objects and come to conflict. We explained all the nuance of that when we first addressed this in this year. What is the point over here, which was said in the Maimon? It's the great paradox. Namely, we just said now that Yechid of the Neshama is revealed where on Shabbos, and particularly when Shabbos Mincha, that's what's most manifest. For the reasons we explained, because Shabbos is about not. It's about being, not doing. Not I do, but I am. Therefore, we find uniquely related to Shabbos the mitzvah, the inyan of Daled Amas, as explained earlier, that the essence of the person is not expressed in conscious faculties, certainly not. Of Seichel and Midas, not even in his Ratzon. And not even in the Makif HaRochai, which is the external level of time of the parallel being, the bias, the home. That even though a home is, but in general, that's where the essence of it's about being, not about doing. Home isn't about performance and function, it's about I am. Nonetheless, as even in a home, it's still things that you do there. Here you relax, here you're in the bathroom, here in the kitchen. There's still some element of expression, which is why, as we said earlier, it's still tailored, even in its size and dimensions, to human activity. So even the bayis, the big chiddush, this nuanced level, that even the bayis, is usually, in general, it's touted as Hashem wants a dira, like a person in a home, his very essence finds free expressions. It's about performing, it's about being. It's where he is undisguised. Nonetheless, there's still an element of expression. The true etzem, therefore, the paradox is being manifest not even in the home, but in the daled amas outside of the home. In halacha, the daled amas are outside his house, outside the city. in Hilchos Eruvin, without repeating that whole halacha, that if the tchum falls, if the city falls within his tchum, coming back from his place of, then he has still, the whole city is considered like Daled Amos. It still has another 9,600 and, 9,000.
1,996.
No, it's 1,000 minus Daled Amos because you.
Okay, 996.
Yeah, 996. At any rate, the point being, this is the paradox. The paradox is that the etzem mamash of the neshama is manifested in something completely outside of the person. Outside, even outside his home. Explained why, because since the neshama is rooted in the essence of Hashem, and Hashem's desire is Hashem's desire is to be expressed dafke here in this physical world, which is the furthest outside place possible. Therefore, that manifests within the person himself. The where is his essence found outside of himself, completely beyond all levels of consciousness, even the bias level. And it's in the Dalet Amos that the etzem is expressed. As he says there, I mean, we learned this. This is addressed in Yom Shateres Achsidus, the famous sikh of the Rebbe that Yitzchak Tafshin Chavav, which everybody has to learn, and I think we learned it. There he elaborates a little bit and says, because the Chachamim were masakin this. The scene of Daled Amos has many manifestations. He was talking about in Hilchos Shabbos, but it's the same meaning. The Chachamim were masakin it to acquire a lost object, not everything to acquire, not lost, but a hefker object. Why is he acquiring it? Why is this important to acquire anything? Because there's a nitzvah kedusha that has to be elevated, and therefore making that place a dir b'tachtonim. It's all rooted in the chutzah, mamish, the outside. Its value is because that's where God desires to be revealed in his very essence, and that therefore the neshama too is its essence is expressed in outside and in this very domain of elevating an object and making it where part of his world, therefore where Hashem can be revealed and he can be revealed. He acquires it. And we added perhaps the reason that Chachamim were Misak and Daled Amos that people shouldn't quarrel. That's the point too. In the world of quarrel, the world of chara, in the world of conflict, that's where God desires to have the dir b'tachtonim. That's where he's acquiring this object. And in a peaceful way. You don't have to fight over it. Automatically, it's in his Daled Amos, without even, this is the ultimate birur, without having to engage it. Naturally becomes part of his world and is elevated. This is the deepest expression of the essence of Hashem and the neshama expressed where? In Tachten, in the lowest external level. This idea has many expressions in psychology as well. And the paradox is, where do you really see the person? Obviously, you have to examine his intellect and his emotion, etc. But if the true chacham, a person is found in the most casual expression, the most external expression, that if it wasn't there, it wouldn't change anything. And but if we really understand, that's where his essence lies, in the most casual external gesture, not conscious gestures. A conscious expression, emotional, intellectual, of course, it's expressive of who I am. But it's when I do something that I'm not even aware of that I'm doing. And it's so external and insignificant that if I did or didn't do it, it would make no difference to me or the world or anything. But that's where the unique essence of that person lies. So this truth is factored into this truth that Hashem's essence that the Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu desires to be aware. That truth is factored into existence. Most prominently with a person. The words of a person expressed in the most external, unconscious, not even aware behavior. Expression. Clear? Okay. So now, including the Maimer, Yisud Aleph. That's why, since by Yaakov it says uniquely, it says uniquely what? Shmira Shabbos. Therefore, he inherits the Nachla B'li Mitzor in the true limitlessness. This is Pshitus of Ein Sof, higher than Kavin altogether. And this is drawn down through Shabbos. Yechida, the Pshitus of the Neshama. And explains, even though the Avram and Yitzchak also observed Shabbos, but their observance of Shabbos was in the same context of all the other mitzvahs, mitzvah the teichen, the content of Shabbos. And therefore the Yechidah level is not transparently revealed. But by Shabbos, since the Torah identifies specifically that Yaakov observed Shabbos, and in Shabbos itself, especially the Tchum, that Yaakov encamped, not Vayichan, yeah? Vayichan Shom, Neged, Pnei, he came to Shechem and he encamped there. As Rashi says, and by the way, as we pointed out in the Chayenos, that Rashi is missing. It's like it's an old fuss of Rashi, such a Rashi to miss. He didn't put it in. But Rashi brings there from the Medrash that the sun was setting and he set up his camp and he's made his Tchum. The Torah points out, thinking of the Daladamas, the Tchum, Dafka by Yaakov. Therefore, since by him we find the expression and the observance as an observance, but the inyan of Shabbos at this deep essential level, therefore he merits the true Nachala B'li Mitzorim, the true boundless expression of Hashem, where Dafka down here. There's something missing at the end of the Maimah. They're not sure the connection because he connects it there. And through you, this is the faratzta he gets, the boundless bracha. All the nations of the world are blessed, and through your seed, that's the bir hanitzutzes. Now they don't explain it, but it could be. They offer an explanation. Okay, they just point out that we said this before, that this is the ultimate birur. A birur that happens without even having to engage the world. Just by a Jew being in the world, that's the daladamas that acquires the object. He expresses his yechidish benefesh so powerfully that everybody's just drawn to this and wants to be part of it without a discussion, without engagement. And that's the true v'nivrucha v'cha. Kol mishpachis hadama, the true birur nitzutzis, is connected to the daladamas. They don't mention it here, but and that's the ultimate birur. Birur b'derech menucha, and the menucha itself in the deepest way, that they come of their own accord naturally. And klip is completely nullified. Okay. That's conclusion of Chazorah. Tomorrow we'll start the next line. I'd intended to learn yesterday in Las Vegas, but the Fabellian finished very late and I had to run to the hotel and go to the airport.